Welcome to Case Closed, the Contingency Fee podcast. On the show, our team of industry experts interviews contingency fee attorneys. You will discover everything from how they got started to the secrets of their success and what's working in today's marketplace. And now, here's the Case Closed podcast.
Folks, we are here for the next session of Case Closed podcast. We have Seann Malloy, the first attorney that I have interviewed who's a published author. So Seann, first let's talk about your book and why you wrote it and what's in it.
So I wrote a book and it's called Run a Marathon, Not a Sprint. And so I've been practicing law since 2004. And I wrote this book, really it's supposed to be for other lawyers, maybe just starting out or just starting up their own law firm. And I did it because I had been through it maybe 13 years ago. And I started off with just me and a laptop and a printer. I didn't even have an office. I was just meeting clients at a Starbucks. Now I have 50 employees, 7 lawyers. So I really started from scratch, had nothing, and made a lot of mistakes along the way and thought, maybe somebody else would find this useful and maybe could learn from my mistakes and maybe not make all the mistakes I did along the way. So that's why I wrote the book. It's 100 pages. It's got a lot of stories, just background about me, try to keep it light, kind of humorous, and just offer, my best advice based on my experiences to younger lawyers that may not have any money, but may want to start their own law firm.
So how many copies have you sold?
I can tell you I've given away maybe 4 or 5. I mean, I've given them away. I think I know my mom bought one. My sister bought one. So I wasn't planning on. So the publisher I used got it all set up on Amazon, so you can buy copies of it. But I give them to people. People come to visit me in my offices. They may see it, ask if they can have a copy of it. I give it to them. So
okay. What is the most interesting case you've had?
Oh, God.
I'm happy. I'm making you think on a Friday afternoon.
Yeah. So I've had situations where I've had to sue like professional athletes or celebrities or politicians. Living in Washington, D.C., I've sued a couple politicians. So long ago, well, I'll just go through them. Early when I was a really young lawyer, I was working at another law firm, probably close to 20 years ago. I represented a woman. I'll go ahead and talk about it. It's been so long. And plus this politician's deceased. So she worked for the British Embassy, very nice lady, and got run over at a crosswalk by none other than Marion Barry, the former mayor of the District of Columbia. And this was during the time when he had gotten reelected. So, he had that video of him. You got to be under a rock if you don't know what the video is. Oh, yeah, no,
I know the video. Yeah.
In a hotel room,
doing
a very sordid video.
Yeah.
Been out of politics for a while. And then he made a comeback and he got elected. To be able to come back from that and get elected.
Amazing.
Amazing. I mean, who else would, who accomplishes something like that? So he got reelected, and it's local DC politics, which I have to admit, I don't understand, even though I've lived here for so long. But anyway, so it was a personal injury case, nothing special or spectacular. He wasn't going to be treated any worse or better, any differently than anybody else. And this was when he also had a lot of IRS problems that he was in the news about. Tax liens, not filing tax returns, owing a lot in taxes. I mean, serious IRS problems, like go to jail IRS problems. I had our investigator serve him with the lawsuit papers, and he answered the door. This is what our processor told me, that he had a green mud mask on, like for skin treatment, like to have your skin nice and soft. So he answered the door with a green mud mask and like a towel and on his head. So that was pretty interesting that he was served appearing that way. But what I heard was that he instantly, he recoiled, and then he took the lawsuit papers, looked at him, and was relieved that it wasn't the IRS. It was just this personal injury suit, and we settled it eventually. So, and
what is the biggest case you've had?
So I represented this is long ago. I worked at another law firm. I represented the shareholders of a sugarcane plantation on Kauai, which is the little island in Hawaii, the farthest westerly island, and was a securities fraud lawsuit. And I was here in DC, and we spent 2 years. I mean, this is the main thing I worked on for 2 years, was this lawsuit out in Hawaii. I was just one of 5 lawyers working on this thing. And I was pretty young, and it was interesting. And I was out there quite a bit. The trial was a month, and I spent a lot of time over the 2 years. I was married. I didn't have any kids at the time. I have 2 kids now, but I spent a lot of time traveling out there, traveling all around the country, because the witnesses, people that we had to depose, lived all over the place. And it was pretty exciting to be, a couple of years out of law school doing this. It was a big deal. So what happened is it was a sugarcane plantation, probably close to 200 years old. It's the biggest landholder on Kauai. And gradually over generations, the stock had been dissipated through many generations. So the stock was owned by lots of different family members. Some of them were very successful. Some of them, it's just like any family. Some of them were not so successful. So you had this basket of just different personalities and people in this family that were becoming distantly related, not very close to each other anymore. Some of them were still close. So the company, sugarcane is not very profitable anymore, and the land is very valuable. So they got out of the sugarcane business in probably the 70s, 60s, and 70s. They still produce some of it, and they got into the resort development business, which is a lot more lucrative. So the business was being run by a couple insiders in the family who had bought up more stock than the others. And they were developing some resorts and developing housing and vacation properties. And then eventually they ran into some financial trouble. They wanted to sell the business, cash out of it. So, this has been in the family for many generations. So it caused a lot of internal conflict. And we represented one group of shareholders against another.
How much did you end up getting?
We ended up losing the trial. So it didn't go our way. I think we ended up settling after appealing it. But so this was after the sale had happened. And the suit was about whether the seller or the buyer had some inside information and whether the family would have voted to sell if they had known, and that the value had been artificially deflated or driven down, I guess, and that it was actually way more valuable than it should have been. So
what's the biggest verdict you got?
Biggest verdict? Probably real estate, a trial over real estate dispute, little over 2 million. And I say over 2 million because some of what we were awarded was some equitable relief by the judge that extinguished all these easements. And then later this very valuable development was built, multi-million-dollar development was built. So that was probably the most valuable part of it, the award. And what ended up happening is after the jury came back, the jury comes back with their award. That's just money. How they fill out the verdict sheet, they put the amount of money in, 2 million. And then later on, we go in for a little mini trial over damages, just over equitable relief that's handled after the jury verdict. The judge grants us some relief that the jury can't do, that only a judge can do.
What is the best advice you've ever gotten, and who gave it to you?
Wow, this is tough. All right, here's a good piece of advice, and this is what I tell other lawyers. This is what somebody told me: having no clients is better than having bad clients. So
I agree with that one.
Second, you've heard that too?
I have many a time.
Yeah. And I guess, like older lawyers will talk about it in terms of case selection. Be careful, case selection. It starts, who do you let in the door? What's your ideal client? What do they look like? What do you look for? We want to help everybody, but we can't. And not every case is a good case. I wish it was. And not every client is an ideal client. So this lawyer said, it's better to have no clients than to have bad clients. And that's true.
I agree. So tell the viewers, what type of cases your law firm handles?
So we handle personal injury cases. So we gradually got out of other types of law that I used to do, real estate litigation, commercial litigation. We stopped doing those. We just focus now on personal injury. We only represent the plaintiff. We handle workers' compensation cases, some medical malpractice, although the medical malpractice we co-counsel with another firm a lot of the time. And we have 7 lawyers here, and we handle cases in Maryland, Washington, D.C., and Virginia.
Well, I like Virginia. I went to UVA.
Oh, yeah, great school.
So with the workers' comp, do you have a company that you work with for Medicare set-asides?
We do. I think we work with a company called Synergy. You work with them?
Well, I don't practice.
Oh, I thought you practiced for.
Yeah, no, I'm still licensed. I'm actually putting in the retirement paperwork in the next week.
Oh, good.
I'm old enough to be your grandpa.
Yeah, we work with Synergy for Medicare set-asides. Honestly, we don't see that too often, which is good.
You don't see that too often. You need to go back because it's everywhere. There's a group that came out in the market that has, the only one I've ever seen that has AI that properly sets it. Because if you use a company right now, what they're doing is to protect themselves, overfilling it by 30 to 40%.
Yeah, they could be doing that, but
which upsets your clients if they found out.
Yeah. So, well, Synergy Settlement, they're pretty good on the East Coast. They're local in our area in Florida too. I don't know what other states they're in, but we work with them.
Does Maryland have PIP, or did y'all get rid of PIP?
Nope, we've got PIP. So we are you look to the insurance policy first, and PIP is usually in increments of 2,500, and it's, we're not a no fault state. So we're not like New Jersey or New York. Although Washington, D.C. is a little different. Most people don't realize this, but in Washington, D.C., you have to make an election to either use your PIP first and forego pursuing a liability or personal injury case, or forego PIP and just pursue the personal injury case.
Well, is that true of being a resident, or if you are a Maryland resident or a Florida resident, you get in an accident in Washington, D.C.? Does it apply to your residency or where the accident occurs?
I think it applies to your residency. Like, is it a DC policy? That's what we always look at. Was it a policy written in DC? So if you're a Maryland resident, you live in Maryland, and you drive into the District of Columbia and get into an accident in DC, you don't have to worry about making that election or not.
Are you seeing a big impact of the non-lawyer owned firms in DC affecting your practice?
None at all. None at all. That's not new for us. That's new for the rest of the country. We've had this.
Oh, no, I know you've had it like 20 years or some crazy.
Yeah. People always become interested in it from other parts of the country. And I get calls sometimes, hey, I'm not a lawyer. I've got a lot of money. I'm an investor. I want to be a partner in your firm or start a new firm. And, I have zero interest in that. I know that there's a lot more activity because it's been allowed in Arizona now and maybe some other states. But
no, Arizona is the only other state that allows it.
Okay, well, Arizona, in DC, so the whole reason this has always existed in DC is because lobbyists want to be able to be partners in these big firms, these giant hundreds of lawyer law firms, and, want to be partners. And that's fine. I understand that they want to have an ownership interest in the firm. But what happened, probably an unintended consequence, was, at least in my world, the personal injury world, is you had personal injury lawyers had the ability to pay non-lawyers for doing different things, like a runner to go get police reports and, activity that I think is very bad for the profession that shouldn't be going on. This was fixed. This loophole was fixed a while back, but I think you had a period of time, maybe in the 90s, where there was some mischief going on at more the local level, like personal injury lawyers, maybe some other types of law where lawyers were splitting fees or paying fees to non-lawyers. And the people who allowed that, I guarantee they didn't anticipate that would go on.
Yeah. So tell the audience here as we wrap up why your firm should be hired if they're in Maryland, DC, or Virginia and get in an auto accident, slip and fall, dog bite, et cetera, medical malpractice. Why should they hire you?
Because we know the local landscape, and personal injury law is very local. And I think our law firm's the perfect size. We're not too big. We're not a giant national firm that comes into an area and blankets it with billboards and commercials, but we're not a mom and pop or solo. We have about 50 people, 7 lawyers. All the lawyers here are excellent. We have a lot of trial experience, and that helps cases get settled. And we have I like to call it a well-oiled machine, and your case is going to receive the best kind of care. And we've invested a lot in technology, our software, and some of the other stuff we use that allows, like we have a portal. Our clients will get invited to create login credentials, and they'll have a portal to have access to a lot of their case file and to be able to communicate directly with the attorney and the paralegal that are assigned to work on their case, just messaging. And a lot of our clients use it. I don't know of any other firm. I'm sure there's other firms out there using something similar to what we have in our area, but I don't know who they are. I'm not aware of one. The clients really love it because they can communicate easily with us and get answers and updates quickly. And we like it too, because they can stay informed. So.
Fantastic. Well, folks, the Goldilocks law firm, getting the right attention, not too big, not too small, is why you should hire Mr. Malloy if you're in Virginia, DC, or Maryland. Thank you for appearing on the Case Closed podcast.
Thank you, Max. Good to talk to you.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Case Closed, the Contingency Fee podcast. We hope you enjoyed listening to this week's guests and their insight. If you liked what you heard, please consider subscribing wherever you listen to podcasts. Case Closed, the Contingency Fee podcast, is led by industry experts who unlock insights from the nation's top contingency fee attorneys. Each week on the show, the guests share how they got started, secrets of their success, and what's working in today's marketplace. Guests on the Case Closed podcast include successful contingency fee attorneys that will share their secrets so you can close more cases. Tune in each week for a dynamic conversation about winning legal strategies that will grow your business.